Let us execute an immediate, sweeping analytical vector shift away from high-profile judicial corruption loops, weaponized class action litigation, and the corporate liability wars of major metropolitan law firms, and plunge straight into the high-octane, calculation-heavy tracking grids of claustrophobic architectural traps, weaponized structural confinement matrices, and the fiercely protective, dangerously fragile world of an isolated female investigator running a raw tactical survival loop. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored, dread-slicked parameters of an ominous soundproofed testing chamber, exploring the lethal analytical parameters of an intense, trust-shattering deception matrix with The Dead Room, the exceptional, pulse-pounding psychological thriller masterpiece engineered by the absolute undisputed sovereign of suffocating Gothic atmosphere, dark psychological isolation games, and high-velocity domestic suspense, Catriona McPherson. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at an operational crossroads where a fierce, deeply determined primary female asset running an unyielding safety loop, a calculating unseen observer asset running a high-stakes proximity tracking and sensory deprivation routine, and an absolute defense of a fractured sanity grid collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn psychological thrillers where an endangered, hyper-observant female protagonist must navigate an absolute maze of rigged acoustics, corrupt institutional gaslighting, and a deadly ring of active personal frame-ups while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised research facility or historic estate ecosystem, where an analytical mind uses deep behavioral profiling, calculated silence boundaries, and absolute emotional stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory executioner asset, and where the author utilizes an incandescent, traumatized woman takes a job monitoring an anechoic chamber only to realize the room silences more than just sound and contains a lethal hidden agenda diagnostic routine. To test our hero's structural limits, this book is engineered to lock you in. McPherson completely dominates the high-precision architectural captivity meets suffocating auditory paranoia puzzles dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating domestic paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by genre vargs like Gillian Flynn, Ruth Ware, C.J. Tudor, and Alex Michaelides, while treating realistic spatial acoustics logistics, complex psychological trauma arcs, and protective high-density extraction grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the highly volatile, calculation-heavy baseline of our central legendary powerhouse asset, operating under a severe calculation-heavy handicap of profound personal grief, intense sensory distortion logs, and a hyper-visible targeting canvas within a specialized architectural database. Behind our protagonist's rigorous facility routing footprints, defensive psychological shielding logs, and sharp observation metrics lies an intricate matrix of hidden structural vulnerabilities, deeply buried past timeline leverage, and sharp high-stakes tactical maneuvers. Her collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight following a devastating life disruption, her entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from an encroaching hostile supervisor, parsing complex behavioral shifts in her own perception, and shielding her vulnerable mental sovereignty node from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless psychological cleanup offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected high-frequency structural anomaly breaches her active scanning perimeter. While working within the oppressive absolute silence of the facility's dead room, her close-quarters monitoring sweeps register a series of impossible auditory and physical data anomalies, phantom vibrations, hidden compartment files containing historic disappearance logs, and the chilling mechanical realization that the room's soundproofing parameters double as a flawless body disposal containment field. Behind the facility's pristine academic facade and scientific metrics lies an intricate matrix of institutional malice, a history of targeted asset liquidations, and a cold, calculation-heavy target containment blueprint. As the hostile adversarial execution phases enter an increasingly lethal terminal tier across her ticking clock timeline, the data mining reveals that her employment was an engineered trap designed to secure her absolute silence. The standard boundaries of professional civilian safety protocols crumble, and our central protagonists run completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors. She is thrust directly into an active, invisible war behind the soundproofed walls, where a highly manipulative facility handler launches aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress her survival data stream and execute her complete systemic erasure. The tactical parameters instantly explode as their historical and survival warfare turns completely active, transforming the isolated research wings, dark concrete corridors, and private fortified residential rooms into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone.
Our protective, hyper-vigilant heroine is forced to deploy her massive intuitive tradecraft, elite behavioral mapping skills, and raw emotional stamina to preserve her focus before her adversary's relentless calculation-heavy proximity containment phase permanently deletes her boundaries. The threat vector remains purposeful and resolute, determined to deploy deep sensory manipulation loops, continuous psychological gaslighting, and persistent dominance to shatter her defense, only to realize that when a survivor asset's core threshold is crossed, her hardened extraction protocols and shifting counter-narratives match their opponent's raw tactical speed step for step. Every midnight archival excavation of hidden facility histories, every silent choice to stand off against an encroaching adversary behind standard architectural barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanics chips away at her reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional, high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the Predator's deceptive perimeters completely unwrapped as Catriona McPherson reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial psychological fracture or managing a difficult personal disclosure. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of domestic manipulation and psychopathic supremacy. While our central characters smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, creating a fiercely protective, absolute web of dark possessive loyalty around their building escape plan, a brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes evidentiary breakthroughs shifts the clock into its terminal phase, proving that deep-seated obsession has tracked them to their final outpost. To survive the impending locked grid trap and permanently secure her sanctuary, our resilient heroine must unleash an absolute, unyielding defense of her final boundary lines. It is a psychological thriller, claustrophobic captivity noir, architectural mystery, and high-velocity contemporary puzzle masterpiece that treats deep relational logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency, one uncovered acoustic anomaly triggers a fatal locked-room showdown energy, where a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes standoff confrontation, or a heavy possessive realization that an elite intelligence operative has completely mapped your personal coordinates carries massive structural weight. McPherson writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, perfectly capturing the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private executive vault before a major corporate takeover, and the distinct, subtle scent of polished mahogany, sterile acoustic foam, cold concrete dust, industrial cleaning fluids, dark adrenaline, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this contemporary standalone marvel into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine protective power tradecraft alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to the horizon. The Dead Room is the definitive pro-level upgrade your high-stakes contemporary thriller and intense asset suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unput-upable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell alongside your network to rewrite the data. So secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the fleet.